Hello and welcome back to another episode of This Round is on Me. A global concept that has caught the imagination of many is club culture, where members are privy to the best services, food, events, and amenities possible at discounted prices. But raising the bar for private clubs of this nature around the country is the Quorum, launched in 2018. Described as India's first homegrown work and social lifestyle club, it has two branches currently, one in Gurugram and the other in Mumbai, and is set to grow further. To share more insights on this subject, joining me is Vivek Narain, founder of the Quorum. We'll be right back after a quick break.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. Listeners, presenting to you Club Cyrus Says, the premium tier offerings for our podcast. Only club members will get Cock and Bull episodes every Monday, extended and unfiltered versions of guest episodes, access to the Club Cyrus Says Discord server, and audio offerings such as ad-free episodes and early access to guest episodes. Also, members get to decide the topics of the live episodes and get their names on the producer slate at the end credits. Meanwhile, the regular Cyrus Says episode will now stream live on YouTube on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. and the guest special episode premieres on YouTube on Fridays at 12 p.m. So make sure you subscribe to the Cyrus Says YouTube channel as well. On A Niche Thing, Anish talks to Arjun Advani, 25-time International Billiards and Snooker Federation World Champion. They discuss everything about this classy sport. On The Habit Coach, Ashdin talks to ENT surgeon Dr. Vijay Rangachari to create awareness about tinnitus. On This Round is on Me, Gauri talks to Naina Hiranandani, co-founder of Sirf Coffee, about matchmaking in the modern times and the current dating scenario. And on Naan Curry, Sadaf talks to chef Jyoti Vishnani about secrets of Sindhi cuisines. Once again, don't forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcast.com. We have some exciting stuff for you. Follow us on social media. We are IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And if you like our shows, spread the word, tell your friends, and don't forget to rate and review the shows wherever you're listening to them. You'll also find all our shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week, Yono SBI, Capgemini, and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thank you for making this possible.
Welcome to the show, Vivek. Great to have you here finally. I know we've been planning this for a while.
Thanks, Gauri.
So, Vivek, I've known you for many years. In fact, I remember that conversation that we had when you were first thinking about doing this in Bombay.
I think it's 2015. 2014, 15 is when we met. And yeah, you're right. So,
and you were looking at the F&B part of it for this club that you were envisioning. But take a step back. You were leading a banker life before this. So what was the reason for the pivot into hospitality and, particularly in the space of private members club?
Yeah, so I was a banker, you're right. And we did in 2006, Gauri, 5-6, I did a transaction in the hospitality space. So we did a fairly large kind of a quasi-private equity transaction, and we bought 3 separate businesses in India that all were in the hospitality space. And it was a buyout transaction, so we ended up running those businesses. I didn't think we knew what we were getting into, and that was the transition. So I think it was by chance. It was transaction-led. So that was the transition from banking to hospitality. And then I guess I got the bug and then spent the next couple of years. I think post that transaction, I ran those businesses for about 3 years and then worked for a global hotel company and spent another 3 or 4 years traveling around the world, luckily on their expense, and got exposed to kind of what was trending. And it was at that stage where we saw this this new proliferation of these, this new genre of members clubs that was popping up around the world.
So when was this around?
This is about 2011.
Okay.
2011. Soho House had started to grow its business from a couple of clubs to its global ambitions.
That's around the time they were thinking of opening in Bombay.
That's
as
correct.
Well, right?
Yeah, I think that was around the time.
Yeah.
I think 12 or 13 is when they kind of started their journey here, and it took them a little longer to get started here, but that's a different story. But before them, there was the Groucho, which was in London, which was the original. I think Soho House was actually inspired from the Groucho. But at that time, there were a lot of independently owned and run clubs in some of the big cities, and that was the time when more and more cities were getting them. And we, through my travels and through my relationships in the hospitality industries and having sort of got exposed to that, I kind of saw this and I felt like, no one was doing it really in India. And that's what inspired me.
So, for me, the whole club culture obviously stems from what we've grown up with, which are probably better known as gymkhanas, right? Where, again, conceptually, obviously from the offering standpoint, very different from what you're doing. But in essence, would you say that that's the sort of original club culture that, India was exposed to before...
this
what
new
you've done.
Contemporary
Right.
version. No, so listen, I think the fundamental tenet of the club business is creating a community. So I don't think that changes with what we've done versus what the, more establishment clubs have done in the past. I actually read a book around that time called The King of Clubs. It was an autobiography of a gentleman called Bob Dedman. Bob was a lawyer that went on to start a business in the U.S. called Club Corporation of America in the 1960s. I think Club Corporation of America, last count, had about 150, 160 clubs and broken into a couple of genres. So that's city clubs. We've now rebranded them or rechristened them as, more contemporary lifestyle clubs. But that's both city clubs, and then you had the, the golf clubs, and then you had athletic clubs. That was sports facilities. So these were the three genres. But he started this business in the 1960s, and I read that book, and I felt there was a lot of analogies to where India was, or is today, and where the US was in the 60s, where it was a country on the move. People were moving into new cities. They were looking for place of belongings. There were existing clubs that existed, but they had curated their communities 2 or 3 generations ago. And their thesis now was keeping people out as opposed to letting them in because they had reached their capacity. So I felt that there was an analogy there as well where there are a lot of new people that don't necessarily have a platform to meet interesting people, and I felt there was a gap there. And, I grew up in Delhi, and, Delhi is known for being a bit cliquey, and people always say, I don't get to meet new people. And I consistently met new people in Delhi. So I felt like there's a lot of interesting people. They just didn't have this opportunity because we get stuck in our silos, right? So I think that inspired me.
So, you hit on a very important point, which I was going to sort of bring up later, which was about inclusivity versus exclusivity, right? So inclusivity is something that is become, the word du jour over the last few years. And this has sort of, in a way, a reverse, goal in a way, or not goal, but a modus operandi. How do you see that?
Yeah, no, listen, it's funny. The 2 words I struggle with is exclusivity and luxury. And whenever people refer to the Quorum, they're like this luxury exclusive club. And it's the 2 words I struggle with the most. I think we're inclusive as well as exclusive at the same time. And I'll tell you what that means is that, we're not, as we're building a community, we're focused more about where you're going as opposed to where you're coming from. We don't hold that against you, but that's not the only barometer that we look for. And I think that's where a definition of exclusivity, comes, and which is not relevant to us. So I always believe that we're inclusive. Now, obviously, there is a filter that we have on membership. There's also a price filter. We're not extremely expensive, but we're not, it's not cheap either. So I think that also becomes a filter of its own. So in that sense, you can say, it's exclusive. But actually, it's quite inclusive in terms of how we're looking to build the community. It's inclusive because we're looking to get a nice balance of industry, age, gender. So these are all, sort of tenets of inclusivity instead of the opposite.
Let's talk a little bit about the membership process and building that community, right? So you mentioned some of the filters, but how are you? I know you're very hands-on and it's your baby and you're kind of involved with every aspect. How do you identify what that community should look like and, how to grow it?
Yeah, so listen, it's evolved a bit since we started. When I first started, I was anyone who was willing to talk to me, I would be... no, listen, jokes apart. I think what we wanted to... I think from the very beginning, what we've stayed fairly constant with is that, we created this third space for what we term as the global Indian, right? And this is someone who's, sort of doing interesting stuff, is well exposed, has a sensibility, or is attracted to a global sensibility. It's not anti-Indian, but it's not. It's about we're all global citizens, right? Gauri, you're a global citizen. I'm a global citizen. So it's what we read, it's how we dress, the music we listen to, it's the food we like, right? So we wanted to say, what is this global Indian? And for me, it was this aspiration of people who have, a certain kind of background in education, if they've been reasonably well-traveled, if they're doing interesting stuff where their job is going to take them to these places. And that's really what we were catering for, whether it's the art and culture. There's Indian art and culture as well as Western art and culture. So we're looking for this globally minded sort of Indian citizen. And, I think the perception of India has also changed globally. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, it was a different perception. You lived in the US, I've lived in the US. Today, India is viewed very differently. So we thought that this is a new age, a new genre for the global Indian. And we wanted to create a club for that. So that was one filter. And in that definition, rather, the filters were, school, high school, education, career growth, career path, the companies you work for, what are you doing from a creative perspective. And yeah, today, luckily, everyone has such a big digital footprint. We were able to get it to about 80% right on being able to, see whether you're a good fit and a good profile or not.
So, the goal here is obviously to create a community, and but how do you sort of curate what you're doing there, and what the offering is to people who become members?
Yeah, so there's different strokes for different folks, right? You can't get it bang on in terms of what people want. But I think the quorum of the curious is again something that we've called ourselves. I think it's curiosity is the currency that we're looking for. And I guess I'll answer your question in two ways. One is, I think if you get the ball rolling in the right direction, it feeds itself. So it's really important to focus on that. And I've seen how Gurugram has evolved into what it has and where it started from. I'm seeing how Bombay is evolving. We're going into our third city now. And I just had a meeting an hour ago, an hour before getting here, with my team there, and I was just telling them that, listen, it's really important to get the ball rolling in the right direction. We get that diversity. If we get the right people, they feed each other. And then what you stand for and what you do is also self-selective in terms of who it's attractive to. It's not everyone's cup of tea. So I think that's something that we stay quite sort of firm on. And we'll evolve a little bit. I won't say, regionally as well as we've evolved a little bit. I don't think, we started with French cuisine and didn't serve Indian food in the dining room. Now we serve you anything anywhere, So those are things that you evolve. But I think if you get the ball rolling in the right direction, and what you stand for and what you do from a programming and content perspective, which I'm sure we'll talk about, is that also becomes a self-selective in the kind of people who are interested in what you're doing. Yeah.
So do you ever feel that to really, give that offering successfully, you would need to there's a threshold at which you sort of stop maybe taking members on because, it starts overflowing at some point?
I think it's a capacity issue of your physical space. But I don't think we're there yet. There's a global kind of benchmark of 5 square foot per member of member area. It's an interesting story. We have a little sort of network of CEOs and founders of clubs around the world that we come together every now and then and share ideas. So I heard that from one of them. That's the global kind of, it's not science, but that's one benchmark. But I think you've got to also be wary of the fact, Gauri, now we're 5 years old in Gurugram, and our early members remain members. They start using it slightly less.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to onboard new members to keep the vibrancy of the place. So I think, and then there's certain events or certain things where there's bottlenecks a bit, but you operationally manage that. Yeah.
Sure. But I mean, obviously for you, the growth comes then, membership's one part of it, but scale in terms of opening more, clubs and, you're looking at Hyderabad.
That's correct.
What made you pick Hyderabad? How do you identify where you're going to go next?
So listen, I think it's, Hyderabad was opportunistic. I'm not going to lie to you. We had 5 or 6 cities that are on our radar, and I'm happy to share what they are. Um, because it's a fairly large, and we got to get the right real estate. I think Hyderabad was just ready and cooked. So I think we bounced in it because it was ready. Bangalore is definitely on our cards. We haven't found the right piece of real estate in Bangalore. And also Bangalore, I struggled with finding what the center of gravity of Bangalore is, because it's a city that's grown, in all different directions. So we got to find the right location. And for us, Gauri, because we're an all-day space that transforms from work to play, with this culture playing a little bit of a catalyst in this transformation, we need to be in a place where you've got a good catchment of both commercial, office, as well as residential. So we've got to have this little... So we're very particular about the real estate location. In terms of the cities we want to be in, I think we have a very clear idea. We'll do them as per our bandwidth, and be, opportunistically what kind of comes up at what time. And I think Hyderabad is just ready. And I think it's going to surprise us a little bit. It's an interesting city, and I think we're there at the right time.
So, between the 2 cities that you're already present in, how has that been different? How would you compare the two, whether it's the membership, whether it's the event curation, what's the experience been like for you?
Yeah, so listen, the location, Bombay was a bit of a special situation for us. We acquired a club during the pandemics, and we kind of worked with what we had. Location is good, but it's not great. It's in Lower Parel. It's in the center. Geographically great location, but it's got a little bit of a last mile issue. I think it's funny, Gauri, you're from Bombay. It's the first time in Bombay that central Bombay, actually people are living there now.
Mm-hmm.
The last 20 years, those mills have been construction sites. 20 years prior to that, they were decrepit pieces of real estate. And, 40, 50 years before that, they were actual mills, right? So the first time central Bombay has this new crop. So we're new in a new city, actually, if you think about it.
True.
So the community there is also getting redefined on who kind of lives there. There are a lot of people from South Bombay that are moving there. There are people from outside of Bombay that are moving there. I think Bombay is a little bit more professional in terms of the community. And it's not a reflection of Bombay. I think it's a reflection of the location we are in Bombay. Gurugram has a nice mix of, again, Gurugram also is a professional city. It's got a lot of the MNCs. So it's a mixture of professionals plus a lot of entrepreneurs, and a lot of the younger creative tribe as well. We haven't really managed so far in Bombay to add that, and that's a big focus for me, is to build that component of the community, because that balance is really important.
Well, I have to say that, as I can speak for Bombay, I've seen some great programming happen at the Quorum, and I've been to a lot of events. I'm not a member, but I've attended a lot over there. And so those events, a lot of them are open to non-members.
Yeah.
How do you kind of expose the club? Is it through events like this, programming like this, where you expose it to non-members? And, what are some of the challenges that you face in building that membership?
Listen, it's when you're taking someone's money, it always, you've got to convince them. I think when we first started, there was a credibility gap. Why should I give, what is Quorum? Will this survive? And these are all valid questions, by the way. I, as a consumer, would have asked the same question. I think we leveraged our personal equity to convince people to take a bet on us, and they did. And, as we've grown as a brand, I wouldn't say it's become easy. It's the credibility part has become a little easier, right? And the fact that we're growing, I think,
and that you're still there, that's important.
I think so I think that makes a difference. Listen, how do you build a community? God, I don't think I still know the answer to that. We're still trying to figure it out. But programming is a big part of it. We use programming strategically to invite folks like yourself every now and then, our hosts and our partners and our collaborators who collaborate with us in the programming, invite folks. It gives exposure to people. It's a soft sell, it's not a hard sell. But I think in both cities, if I can say one thing that's been a massive, pipeline for our membership efforts has been referrals from existing members. Again, going back to the book I read from Bob Dedman, and I'll quote him, and he said, we're in the repeat and referral business. The members we have, we want to keep, and through them get others. And if you do a good job and you engage your members and you look after them well, they're proud, they become your greatest ambassadors.
I mean, that's true for, I think, any business, and especially, I say that for our industry as well, the F&B business, there's no publicity like word of mouth. There's no marketing like word of mouth, because it's genuine, it's a genuine endorsement that no amount of money can buy.
I had members in the early part of our, I don't think you've been to Gurugram, but,
I have. It's beautiful.
Yeah, aesthetically, I think we kind of, it set a little bit of a benchmark, at least in our eyes, in terms of, how a space of that size and scale sort of was made to feel as an extension of your home. But I've had members, and senior lawyers and very established people walking into the club and showing their friends around. And I said, may I help, take your friend? They said, no, we like to do it. So very proudly, they were showing the space, and you can't beat that. Money can't buy that kind of publicity. So I think the word of mouth, member referrals always will remain. And that comes down to, Gauri, and you know this better than anyone, if you deliver a consistent product and you look after people, and hospitality is all about that, I think it hits a nerve at a deeper level, which kind of pays back if you do it well.
100%. You talked about collaboration with the right partners, and I've seen, obviously, through your programming, a lot of that happening. There's no doubt about the importance and successful outcome of a great collaboration. How, do you identify the right partners and brands to collaborate with, and, give value, therefore, to your members or visitors?
Or the brand, for that matter.
Or the brand,
yeah.
Exactly.
So I think, listen, there are 2-3 parts to it. But fundamentally, I felt there's more content than platforms. There's more art than walls. I've always believed that. And if you can create a space that had that as an intention, designed by intent, as opposed to, thinking about it later and force-fitting it, so that was very much our intent in the design. So I think it kind of works more naturally, and it fits like a glove slightly better. And then if you can build a relevant community of people who are end consumers, so you've got the consumer base, and you've created a platform, then obviously the brands kind of want to collaborate with you. And we don't get up there and create the content. We're happy to collaborate with everyone. We play the role of curator as opposed to creator, and we've collaborated with all the publishing houses. We've collaborated with a lot of lifestyle brands on the retail side. I mean, obviously on the food and beverage side, and we've collaborated with restaurants. I've been telling you need to do a pop-up with us in Gurugram, and we'd love to have. We don't feel we never consider it as a threat. I think it's a great experience for us to give to our members, even on the food and beverage side. I mean, I'll give you a small example. There was a young couple, one Vietnamese, one Indian, who was starting a Vietnamese restaurant, super authentic in Gurugram. And they were doing these little dinners as a run-up test case to opening the restaurant. And we did 2 or 3 of them at the Quorum. And they were super grateful that we gave them a little visibility. Our members were really happy to try something new. Our kitchen was like, we learned a few things. So
it's a win-win.
It was a win-win across the board.
Yeah.
And the economics, it doesn't really matter beyond a point. It's like, it's not about the economics. It's about the larger picture.
Yeah.
And that's the lens that we viewed collaboration from, and we'll continue to do that. We don't really see it as a threat.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've been a firm believer of, collaborating with your competition in a way, because it's just as long as it's a win-win. I think that's the key thing for everyone involved. There's no reason not to do it, and I think there has to be a lot of synergy in terms of audience or values, or as long as that can be found, it's
And as some of the brands today, I'm talking about consumer brands, moving away from F&B, as they go more digital, they're looking for creating more
physical experience.
Physical experiences. Yeah. And if you have a venue that is, I joke with people, I say we become an event company, right? Because if you do an event with us, Otherwise, you need to go to 5 different people. You need to go to a PR firm to invite people. You need to find a venue. You need to find a food and beverage partner. And then, you need to find 4 or 5 different things to make it happen. Just come to us, and if we think it's appropriate and we can do justice to it, it's a one-stop shop. So I think more and more of that's going to happen as brands go more digital. They're going to create this omni-channel, physical, experiential thing for their product to get known. And I think places like ours are an interesting option for them to explore.
So I know you focus a lot on the lifestyle aspect of, in terms of the offering. I actually initially thought of it as a co-working space.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think you sort of, you're well beyond that as far as at least the Quorum is concerned. How do you distinguish the two? I mean, again, my sort of viewpoint is Bombay. And I see it, honestly, it's quite a blur to me because there are a lot of spaces, different size sort of spaces, which seem to realize that whether you're a co-working space or not, that lifestyle, this sort of this cultural awareness and, community building is integral. You cannot just be a functional space anymore. How do you sort of, I guess, lean one way over the other?
Yeah, so listen, you work from anywhere and everywhere now. So I think
exactly.
And I think that's been something that's accelerated post the pandemic as well. But I'll answer your question maybe in 2 parts or 2 or 3 parts because there are a couple of sub questions within what you're asking. I think when we set up the club, we always viewed it as being this transformational space. In fact, our mascot is a chameleon. His name is Django, by the way, and the chameleon transforms its colors, and we transform from day to night, and that transformation from day to night is we use programming and culture to be a catalyst for that transformation. So that was always the intention. And when we built our space, we thought about table heights and ergonomics of chairs. We saw people with laptops in the daytime, and plug points were appropriately designed, and then that chair had enough recline in it to be loungy at the same time, right? So it was very much the intention to be this third space that worked morning, noon, evening, and that actually, by the way, was one of my learnings from investing in the hospitality business, because restaurants only make money really for 4 hours a day, right? 2 hours during
the meal period.
Yeah, so I said, listen, we got to figure something out that sweats the asset, right? And the trend of working anywhere and everywhere has only now sort of become apparent. When we did it, it wasn't apparent, but it was very intentionally done from our end. So that's kind of what, you have this membership base, it's community driven, it's an all-day space, it has many utilities, it's a great space to work and have your business meetings, equally to dine and entertain and host social gatherings, right? And in the meantime, we do some curated events that induce the demand and help build the community. Co-working, which we have a co-working business, is different. Co-working is basically you own a seat and you pay for it per month, right? It's a different kind of sub-asset class. We've now, from Bombay onwards, will have a small co-working place attached to our club. It's at the very high end of the market, but the club business is not a co-working business. Right. And I think it's not even a nuanced difference. I think it's quite clear. Co-working is basically an arbitrage of a co-working operator rents something for X and cuts it up and further rents it out for Y.
Yeah.
There's no hospitality in co-working, even though
it's more functional for sure.
It's totally functional. Yeah. And then they do a little bit of programming and engagement, but there's no real community building because whether you're a Samsung or a young startup,
I mean, primarily you're a sort of office space, a flexible office space of sorts. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many words for it. Managed office, flexible office, and it's serviced office. They were called business centers 20 years ago. It's the same thing, but you're renting a space or a desk by the week or by the month, and it's a little bit flexible in terms of its contract term, and that's where the word flexible comes from. We're not. You cannot just walk in and say, I want a desk. If you're a member, you may use our facility as you deem appropriate. It may sound nuanced, but in our mind, it's quite clear what we are and what we're not.
I think it's pretty clear, and I think you've explained it really well. And when you become a member, you're not signing up for the desk. That desk. You're signing up to a whole sort of offering that goes well beyond that, and you may happen to use the desk.
And and sometimes you may just become a member for that option to use the desk, and that's also okay. There's some members who use it more in the daytime, and there's some that use it more at night. We try and convince you, or
to spend the whole day.
Spend the whole day. That's our job.
Yeah,
is to do enough interesting stuff that kind of, takes your entire wallet share for the day.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the pandemic. I mean, you mentioned that and how things have changed post-pandemic, but I know that this is, for want of a better word, a luxury that a lot of people, have. So in the pandemic, a lot of trimming happened. How did you guys get through it? And, how did sort of you get through that period? And what have you seen as a change that you've had to kind of evolve with post-pandemic?
So listen, Gauri, first of all, it was a shock to our industry. I don't need to tell you that. I kind of saw it coming a little earlier. I shut the club on the 17th of March. We went into lockdown the 22nd. I sent all the staff back home. I took all the perishable, food in our refrigerators. I sort of, we gave it all to all our team members. We said, just take the food, cook it, use it, go home. So we kind of because we knew it was going to happen. So luckily we didn't have anyone that got stuck getting back home, because that was like the big disaster, the fiasco of the first lockdown. We were running on fumes. How long is this going to last? I think everyone took a pay cut during that time. But what happened to us was really interesting. When everyone was planning to reopen, they'd exhausted their working capital for most restaurants, as did we, most hospitality establishments. I actually wrote to all our members, and I said, listen, we're reopening. We wrote to members who owed us their annual fees for the next 6, 8, 10 months. And we said, if you pay up now, we'll give you 10% off, but it'll go a long way in helping us. 95% paid up. So we started with super injection of liquidity from our community, which is something that not a lot of people have the option to do.
No.
So we didn't fall back on any of our statutory payments. We didn't cut back in any safety. I actually spent money on air purification during that time. So we were able to reopen with a very high quality of, mitigation measures, which were at that time everyone was looking for that, right? And then people came back. They came back with a vengeance, and they felt safer coming to us because there was a bit more control. There was the optics of. They felt safer that we would be able to enforce the rules of what was appropriate at that time better than, say, an establishment that was open to the public. So that was the first phase. And then when we got over that fear, and forget the second one came and went, and I think everyone got over it. What happened, Gauri, for us was people realized that they could work from anywhere, and our original thesis really came to roost at that time. And both our membership as well as the utilization of the club, a lot of people are saying, hey, I see the value now of taking this membership. That became apparent. And by the way, during that time, 50 club owners around the world came together, and we had about 8 to 10 Zoom calls with each other, sharing like what's happening, and we shared some great insights and great ideas, and everyone went through the same trend. Everyone saw this. People wanted to come back to their clubs earlier. What safety and precaution measures we should take. And some were doing rapid antigen tests in the parking lot and giving you a cocktail before they let you up. I mean, there was a whole bunch of things that were happening, but it was great to have this peer group, share ideas. We were not alone. The whole world was going through it. And then we came out of it pretty strong. And then, we acquired this club in Mumbai that went bankrupt during the pandemic. So you did that
during the pandemic?
We did during
That's
the pandemic.
Crazy.
We did it during the second wave. We did construction during the second lockdown. My wife, Sonia, who you know, is the co-founder with me. I think we took 40 flights that year. Airports were empty. I stayed at the Four Seasons. I don't want to share the rate I paid at the Four Seasons.
Bless them.
I bless them. Bless them. Thank you very much for that. I spent maybe 150 nights that year, on a construction site here. And we did during the pandemic. No one was here. No one.
When did you open Bombay?
We opened August. March 2020, I was told that it's coming my way. So I spent the first 3 months during the lockdown planning on how I'm going to do this and raise the capital or what have you, and trying to figure out how to.
So you never went through this thing of if I haven't signed it, I'm not taking this forward.
No, I was working on it.
Okay.
I was working on it. I was figuring it out. I was hustling. And
so the pandemic didn't put you off the idea of
oh my God, I worked more during the pandemic than and then November 2020. We kind of did a handshake. I took the asset over in Feb. We went into second lockdown the following April, during the Omicron. And during that time, we just went through construction. I opened August 2021. So it was we kept ourselves very busy. Everyone was running the other way. We ran the other way.
Towards it.
Yeah. In hindsight, it turned out okay. But at the time,
it was a big risk. Yeah.
A lot of people said you're mad. You're mad to do it. But
we went through something similar where we most of the restaurant industry also closed about a week before official lockdown, and we had just opened a restaurant,
right?
10 days before, and we said, look, chefs, go back to wherever, Singapore, Malaysia, wherever you come from. It was a Cantonese restaurant. And we said, we'll see you in 2 weeks, and maybe you can come back then. And of course, 2 weeks turned into 2 years.
Yeah.
But so we ended up actually, because they could never come back, we took a similar punt and rebranded that restaurant into a cafe, which thankfully still exists.
Yeah.
But I remember going through the same thought process and saying, we're crazy, Jay, you're mad. This when we're barely able to meet payroll, we're sort of looking at doing a new project, and God knows if there's going to be a third wave and, all of that. But I think that kind of risk sometimes really pays off, and it takes a lot of courage. So, kudos.
We were fortunate, actually, Gauri, because our partner in Bombay also was a very established real estate, sort of one of the biggest global real estate players. And they said, hey, we see this coming back. So we had, to be fair, they had a lot of trust in our ability to perhaps rejuvenate, their asset once things. And for them, it was it didn't move the needle.
Yeah.
For us, it moved the world, but for them, it didn't move the needle. So I think the fact that I had the support and stability of this large financial investor said, listen, we've got you back. We've got your backing. Go and do this. I think that gave us a lot of. So I have to give them credit.
Still pulling off something like that in the middle of a pandemic.
Would be nothing to lose, right? You had nothing to lose. You had to go. You went all in.
Couldn't get lower than that.
Couldn't get lower than that. Exactly.
Talking a little bit about your competitors, and firstly, what distinguishes you from, this is something that has picked up a lot, the idea of private members clubs, and you mentioned Soho House and the likes of that. Leave out the co-working spaces, but there's also, we talked about the gymkhanas right up in the beginning. Who are you what do you see as competition that is that's fighting for the time of your membership cohort?
Yeah, so listen, if I take membership out of it, everyone's competition in the F&B. Tomorrow I have to do a good enough job where people decide to dine at my establishment versus your establishment, right? So I think...
Yeah, that's true.
Everyone's your competition when you are in the food and beverage business. So I think fundamentally, that's one point I wanted to make. In terms of membership clubs, I think it is heating up. But I think that's a good thing, right? Because the category is getting established. I don't no longer need to tell you, what am I need to tell you why I'm different.
Exactly.
Right? And then it's for them to judge. Now, without getting ahead of myself, we do have a little bit of a head start. It is a multifaceted business where there are many moving parts. There's the community, there's culture, there's wellness, there's art and design, and there's food and beverage. And all of them have to come together. And I think we managed to do it reasonably well in the first two, and I think we're getting slightly better at it. So we want to keep consolidating in our position. And I think there's a network effect, Gauri, and that's one of the reasons why I'm looking to build the footprint. as you build the network, the value of the membership becomes more valuable, right? And then that feeds itself. So that's very much our focus. So I think the fact that more people are coming in, I welcome that. I think it's a great thing. The category is getting established, and listen, London has 220 clubs.
Yeah, that's crazy. I
Yeah,
mean,
and a lot of people
yeah.
have multiple club memberships. Yeah.
So, speaking of clubs around the world, I know, and building your footprint, I know that you have a lot of associations with clubs overseas. How do you identify, clubs that you feel are a good match for what you're offering here and therefore for your members?
Yeah, I think the first 15, 20 were easy. They were obviously much more established than we were and well known in the markets they were in. One such was the Battery in San Francisco. That you lived in San Francisco and you know the Battery. And Michael Birch was really been the godfather of this modern club revolution that's happened. And I got introduced to him, and we really use the Battery as our North Star when we're looking at the DNA. And they've actually taken the step forward and created a consortium of clubs that have come together. And they're actually, Michael was a tech entrepreneur. So he's created a tech platform for club management software, which is a big pain point, by the way, for all of us, right? Because so many different systems, they don't never talk to each other. And he's created this reciprocal network called the Sonato Alliance, and we're part of it. We're a founding member of Sonato Alliance. So they do the vetting for us on what clubs are appropriate. It's a little US-centric right now, so we're looking to build a network more balanced around the world. But, they've taken the lead of putting together these independently owned clubs that share a similar DNA in terms of what they stand for and what they do. A lot of us are programming-led, culture-led, and building a community around that. And it's interesting, in fact, this is the consortium of CEOs or founders that came together during the pandemic, thanks to Michael, who took that initiative, sitting out of the Bahamas. I think it's a really interesting idea. I think collectively we have over 200,000 members across all these clubs, and we've talked about sharing best practices and maybe even sharing GMs going, to various clubs and programming ideas, maybe co-sponsorship. So it's an interesting sort of association that came out of the pandemic, and I think we're in the first innings of working closer and closer together. But like I said, I think the narrative is pretty. I mean, you can figure out from the narrative what the club stands for, and more and more clubs get introduced to us. Our members sometimes just introduce us to clubs, and then we check them out. We have a call with them, figure out what they're doing, and if we feel that there's a match, it's a nice option.
Sure. So, we've talked a lot about the culture and programming aspect of it. Let's talk about the hospitality. That's a big part of it, and it's something that just pervades in the background. It's not necessarily, it's not F&B is one part of what you do. How do you sort of define and sort of build that hospitality that you want to offer your members?
Yeah, I think we're still defining it. Sonia, who's my wife, comes from a restaurant background. Her mother and her brother are serial restaurateurs. So she's had the exposure. I went to boarding school. We ate what was put on our plate. So, I can't take credit for anything. But I think we started with and then the clubs are a bit tricky, Gauri, because you're repeat customers. You have them through the day. You need to have a big enough menu. That complicates the kitchen in terms of the mise en place and the costing and everything. So I think what we've ended up being a little bit of a generalist on the food side. I think we do an above average job on the food, but we do need to be a generalist. We've got a great breakfast menu, we've got a lunch menu, we've got a dinner menu, we've got a private events and banqueting sort of menu. We've stayed away from becoming too focused on that, because we do need to have a large repertoire of food. But I think after now 5 years, we are looking at reinventing that and seeing how we can keep that generalization focused while picking up maybe days of the week or meal periods where we get that focus. But the positive thing is that because we built something of scale, Gauri, I think we can afford to attract slightly better quality talent than a standalone restaurant. So that's the counterbalance to this. And, I think we built a great team, super motivated, super committed to our business, and increasingly getting more and more innovative with what they're doing. And I think that's where, see, you're the top end of a standalone restaurant. But if you look at the medium, middle to bottom end, I think, how much they pay the chef, you can only hit that level. And I think that's something that we're able to do because we're able to, I think, attract and a better resource. We can afford better resources given the scale at which what we do. On the beverage side, I think we have one of the best cocktail sort of programs in the country. Unfortunately, because we're not a public space, but if we were, we'd be, I think, the top 10 bars in the country consistently. I think we have a great beverage program and a lot of innovation on the beverage side. So it's a good quality, overall a great quality experience for our members, but it's not specialist, so it'll always fall 2 or 3 notches short of that menu that you have, which is 2 pages.
But that's you kind of hit the nail on the head, right? That you're not trying to be sort of a restaurant or just a bar. You have to be sort of offering a wider.
You've got to have wider.
Yeah.
I hate to say the word multi-cuisine, but that is what we have to be.
It is, and the fact is that you are catering to people, like you said, the whole day through. So it has to have enough variety.
It's got to have enough variety and repeat customers. So what we do is we try and keep it as seasonal as possible. Try and change our menu as regularly as possible to keep in touch with what's kind of trending at that time, seasonality wise. So 40% of the menu goes through this innovation, but that's hard work. Every time you change your menu, by the time it gets changed, the bloody season's half over. So, but we're getting better. We're getting better. I think we're always inspired by people like yourselves, standalone restaurants, and what they're doing, and we can pick 1 or 2 small things, and that's kind of how the industry works. So,
what are you looking at in 2023? What are the conversations and trends that you see being relevant in the coming year?
I think the way our programming works is that because we collaborate with a lot of the publishing houses, those that are writing about what's trending basically comes to us. So we're always in line with what's there. But I think I don't know if I can go the full year, but if I'm thinking about February and March, I'm really intrigued by what's happening in the tech world. We've got a lot of tech entrepreneurs who are our members. I think there's been this massive disruption on valuations and reset in the US that is starting to trickle down here. So on the funding side is something that we're looking to talk about next month. ChatGPT is something that we're doing a conversation on next month, and then Indian politics is a lot of fun always. So there's always something that's trending.
I'm sure you have a lot of that in Delhi, especially. I mean, Gurgaon rather.
Yeah, and Bombay.
Yeah.
And I think actually there's a higher demand for political discourse here because you guys don't get it here, right?
Exactly.
So. I think Indians are generally, they love their politics or they hate their politics, but so I think that's something that strikes a chord that gets people quite interested and riled up. But I think lifestyle stuff keeps coming as they are. We pick up topics that are trending from a business and economy perspective. That's something that I personally drive. And then, we play host to authors that are writing about what's relevant in the ordinary course. So.
What about in the actual sort of private members club arena? What are some of the interesting trends that you're seeing, that are, there's so much tech evolution, you can't even keep up with it. I don't know. I mean, what are some of the things that you're seeing, exciting things that are happening?
I think the industry is on fire. I think every city in the US, I think there's a new club opening every month. So I think there's this real. So I hope it doesn't get ahead of itself. But I think generally it's quite trending. I think the Aman just opened in New York. Cipriani's just opened a club in New York. And I think the Aman's about $250,000 initiation fee. So everyone's kind of finding these gated communities. But what are the trends in terms of so I think one big trend that we're seeing, Gauri, from our vantage point is I think the world of work and hotels are converging. Something I've been
But like accommodation is something you've clearly stayed away from. So what's
no,
the...
so just put the accommodation aside for a minute. We're a hotel without rooms.
Exactly.
Right. But the worlds of hospitality and work are converging.
Yeah.
Right. People have moved away from being under the white light and they want the softer light and they want the library style rooms versus the, and that was happening for many years, but I think it's kind of accelerated. I think the office building of the future is kind of re-looking at its role. And we've been doing a lot of work around that as well. We've happened to open 2 of our clubs in office buildings, and we think this is a global phenomenon. This is not specific to India. And I have there are hotels that are putting co-working spaces in hotels now. So I think this is convergence happening. That's quite interesting, and we're seeing. I think it's going to play out in multiple ways over the years to come, and we're very much focused on that. Very much focused on that. And the reason we don't have accommodation, by the way, is so far, and I'll caveat that, is that our focus has been in office buildings, and the zoning in India doesn't allow you to have hotel rooms in office buildings. And that's never going to change. So we just decided to keep it away for now.
That's interesting. So you consciously want to be in office buildings almost to...
No, so the first...
because both the first 2 have been, right?
No, the first one was whoever gave me real estate, I'd do it. So it was not conscious at all. Now that we've gone to office buildings and we've seen this change, and especially post-pandemic got accelerated, I think the role of the office is being questioned. Hybrid is here to stay. It's never going to change. I think it's one of those trends that's never going to change. And so it's got us thinking that, hey, we've got an interesting bird's eye view of what's happening. We're office occupiers. I'll give you a small example. There's a very large law firm, and I won't name them, in Bombay that's in our building. And in their meeting rooms, they have a Quorum menu. Right? And we just serve it up from our service elevator. So we just increased our...
so the borders are getting blurred.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're only in the first innings of that.
Interesting. Very interesting. Definitely a space to watch. We're going to take a quick break before we enter the last segment of the show.
Hey folks, this is your host Anubhav Gupta. I want to tell you all about Club Paisa Vaisa. This is a premium tier offering for fans of the show. Members of this club have a few privileges, and let me tell you about them. Members will get access to episodes 3 days prior to the release. Members will get the archival access to all Paisa Vaisa episodes starting from day 1. And the non-members will still get access to the latest 15 episodes. I'll bring you weekly host insights, giving you my personal learnings from each episode on the show, and all of this will come with a completely ad-free experience. Finally, in 2023, we have some exciting plans for new exclusive content that is available only for members. You can go to club.ivmpodcast.com/paisa or click on the link in the description and sign up today. As an introductory offer, it's at ₹699 for a 1-year membership. Note that starting 2023, all Paisa Vaisa episodes will become a part of Club Paisa Vaisa, and the non-members will get access to the latest 15 episodes. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you on the other side.
So, Vivek, lots of interesting work conversation. Let's move away from the work side a little bit. What do you do to unwind?
I guess, I now live in Goa. So an afternoon on the beach is the way to just reset my week. And I try and do that once a week. So
I'm supremely jealous.
Yeah.
What's your go-to comfort food? I asked this with my restaurateur cap on.
Dal chawal
Oh.
at home. Because, we eat out all
Listen,
the time.
9 out of 10 people say khichdi. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're not too far
Yeah,
off.
listen, homemade dal chawal and with ande ki bhujia has been my staple go-to comfort food for years.
What's a great book or podcast, if you listen to them, that you recommend?
Yeah, so I think I accidentally stumbled upon the graphic novel of what is that? Yuval Harari's Homo Sapiens.
Right.
I was reading it to my kids, and I couldn't get through the book, but this is something that everyone should. It's fantastic, Gauri. It really is.
The children's version, the big one.
children's
Yeah, I
version.
know.
Yeah. So that's my latest book that I've been reading to my kids and thoroughly enjoyed it. Big fan of podcasts. I think we were discussing this earlier. I listen to now most of my content through this medium. Something I listen to religiously every week is the All In podcast for very successful Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. Talk about everything that's happening in the world, and it really keeps me well informed and always gives me ideas every week. So something Saturday evening or Sunday morning, that's my go-to podcast that I listen to every week without fail.
What would you sort of rate as one of the best investments you've made in yourself in the course of your journey?
I think so far, I think it's the Quorum what we're doing. Listen, I've been a very avid reader of current affairs and what's happening around the economy and the world. I've never really actioned that into great investments for myself. So it's I don't know. It's a.
I mean, not
paradox.
necessarily a financial investment.
Yeah.
I just mean as something that you've given your time to, I guess.
Yes, I love what I do.
Yeah.
I love what I do. I think I created an opportunity to build a business around my interests, and I think that's so far been very rewarding. I do hope that it becomes financially rewarding at some stage, but I think it has I think we're in the beginning of perhaps that turning out that way. But I really enjoy what I do, and I don't feel like it's work. And it's hard work being an entrepreneur, but if you enjoy what you do, it makes it that much easier.
Absolutely. I resonate with that a lot. What's your definition of success?
Happiness and joy, and just happy, joyful family is probably the biggest measure of success one can have.
And what would be your message to startup entrepreneurs?
Listen, I read somewhere that no business is a business till it becomes one. So just kind of believe in your dream and keep at it and build that momentum. And even today as an entrepreneur, I'm always trying to build that momentum. And I think once the momentum, once you get that critical mass of momentum, it starts to feed on itself. But that initial push is really hard. Don't give up hope in that initial push. And it can take time. It can take 5-6 years. But don't give up hope on that. Just keep grinding it. And that word grit means something, and it's important. And just keep at it.
Wise words, Vivek. Thank you so much for being on the show, and I truly wish you all the best with the new openings and hopefully many more to come.
Thanks very much, Gauri. Thanks.